Stories and Documentary Network.
High above the Pacific coast, where the relentless desert meets the roaring waves and the Andes pierce the sky with jagged peaks, two civilizations rose to unimaginable heights. They wielded power, wealth, and knowledge in ways that still baffle historians today. The Chimu Empire, masters of the northern coast, carved kingdoms from sand and sea. The Inca Empire, rulers of the highlands, forged an empire that stretched across mountains, rivers, and valleys. Yet the question lingers like a shadow across time. Who truly built Mesoamerica's golden age? Was it the Chimu, whose sprawling adobe city of Chanchan shimmered like a desert mirage? Or the Incas, whose stone fortresses and mountain roads stitched together an empire of legends? This story is not just about conquest. It is a tale of innovation, vision, and power. It is a story written in gold, stone, and water, whispered through the ruins of cities swallowed by history. Tonight, we step into a world of mystery, ambition, and brilliance, where every wall, canal, and temple tells a story. The golden age of the Andes waits to reveal its secrets, but only to those who dare to uncover them. To understand the Inca, we must first journey into the heart of the desert kingdom of the Chimu. Long before the Incas rose in the highlands, the Chimu thrived along the arid northern coast of Peru. Emerging around the 9th century CE, they were the heirs of the ancient Moche culture. Yet their vision surpassed their predecessors. The Chimu transformed a barren desert into a realm of abundance, building an empire in one of the most unforgiving landscapes on Earth. Water was their secret. Rivers that threatened to disappear in the sands were diverted into canals, creating fertile fields where maize, beans, and squash flourished. The Pacific Ocean, cruel yet generous, offered fish, shellfish, and algae, sustaining a civilization that seemed impossible against the harsh climate. But survival alone was never their ambition. The Chimu were innovators, visionaries who understood that wealth was not just gold or silver, it was control. They developed a hierarchical society where kings, priests, and artisans dictated the flow of resources, knowledge, and labor. And in this society, the seeds of an empire's grandeur were quietly, meticulously sown. Yet even as they mastered desert and sea, the Chimu's greatest triumph awaited, a city unlike any other. At the heart of the Chimu Empire lay Chanchan, a city that still evokes awe, even in ruins. Stretching over 20 square kilometers, it was the largest adobe city ever built. Its walls were high, fortified, and adorned with intricate reliefs depicting waves, fish, and the sacred symbols of a culture in love with both land and sea. Chanchan was not a city for ordinary citizens. Commoners lived outside, while within, palaces, ceremonial courts, and storerooms formed a labyrinth of power. Here, the elite controlled the wealth of an empire. Cotton, gold, silver, and precious shells flowed into massive warehouses like rivers of tribute. Each palace complex was a microcosm of Chimu society, a controlled universe where every courtyard, room, and passage served a purpose. The city itself was a marvel of urban planning. Roads and alleyways guided traffic, canals carried water to gardens and courtyards, and symbolic carvings told stories of kings, gods, and cosmic order. Chanchan was more than a capital. It was a statement, a declaration that the Chimu had mastered the desert and created a civilization that rivaled any in the world. But Chanchan's walls were more than decoration. They were the veins of an empire powered by engineering, innovation, and control. The Chimu Empire was built on the mastery of water, labor, and craft. Their engineering prowess turned deserts into breadbaskets, their canals stretching tens of kilometers to irrigate fields that fed thousands. These were not mere agricultural projects. They were feats of precision, planning, and political control. Artisans worked in specialized workshops, producing textiles dyed with vivid colors, ceramics embossed with intricate motifs, and gold ornaments that seemed to capture sunlight itself. The Inca, upon conquering the Chimu, recognized their mastery and absorbed these artisans into their own workshops, preserving techniques that might have otherwise been lost to history. Power, however, was as important as innovation. The Chimu king, or Tsikwik, ruled with absolute authority, supported by a class of nobles who enforced laws, collected tribute, and maintained the intricate machinery of empire. The ordinary people, farmers, fishermen, and laborers, sustained the elite, bound by social contracts, ritual obligations, and necessity. From the north, their empire extended 1,000 kilometers along the coast, yet power remained centralized, controlled with subtlety and intimidation. Roads, canals, and fortified palaces were not just infrastructure. They were symbols of dominance, reminders that the Chimu Empire was a force both practical and spiritual. Yet while the Chimu thrived along the coast, far above in the highlands, another civilization was quietly preparing to challenge their supremacy. High in the Andes, where snow-capped peaks pierce the clouds and valleys twist like rivers of stone, a small tribe began its slow ascent. The Inca, originally one among many competing highland groups, carved their first foothold in the fertile valley of Cusco. Here, under the leadership of visionary rulers like Pachacuti, the Incas transformed a modest city-state into the heart of a sprawling empire. Cusco was designed to impress, not just to house. Streets radiated from the central plaza like beams of sunlight. Temples gleamed with gold, and palaces reflected the grandeur of a civilization that dreamed in stone. It was more than architecture. It was a political statement, a map of power that broadcast the emperor's control over land, people, and spirit. The Incas were not conquerors alone. They were organizers. Where rivals saw obstacles, they saw opportunity. Cusco became a hub of administration, culture, and religion, a city whose influence stretched into the valleys, plateaus, and mountains surrounding it. And as the Incas looked outward, the northern deserts and the riches of the Chimu beckoned. But before they could claim new lands, they needed to master the art of governance across an empire that would span thousands of miles. The Inca Empire expanded with a combination of strategy, diplomacy, and sheer ingenuity. Through alliances, marriages, and force, they absorbed neighboring kingdoms into their growing realm. But conquest alone did not define their success. Administration was key. The Incas developed an intricate bureaucracy. Governors oversaw provinces, while local leaders maintained day-to-day control. The Amita system ensured labor was organized for public works, while massive storehouses stored food to sustain armies and citizens during shortages. Roads wound across mountains, rivers, and deserts, connecting the empire in ways that rivaled any modern nation. Even without writing, the Incas maintained complex records using quipus, knotted cords that encoded numerical and logistical information. With these tools, they coordinated massive construction projects, collected tribute, and monitored resources across thousands of kilometers. Their expansion was not chaos. It was precision, a living machine of governance and control. And yet, no matter how vast their empire grew, the Incas were still students of the civilizations they encountered, learning and adapting as they advanced. In little more than a century, the Incas reshaped the Andean world. From modest highland tribes to rulers of the largest pre-Columbian empire, they wove together diverse peoples, languages, and landscapes into a unified vision. Roads, terraces, temples, and administrative centers transformed valleys and mountains into a network of power and culture. Yet as they expanded south and north, the Incas encountered the Chimu, a civilization as sophisticated as it was ancient. Here lay knowledge of irrigation, urban planning, and wealth management that the Incas could not ignore. And in their ambition, the Incas did what empires have always done. They conquered, absorbed, and transformed. The stage was set. A clash of empires, technologies, and visions loomed on the horizon. And in that collision lay the answer, or perhaps the eternal mystery, of who truly defined Mesoamerica's golden age. To understand their legacy, we must now explore the extraordinary engineering and architecture that made these civilizations immortal. The Chimu were architects of possibility in a land where nature seemed determined to resist human ambition. Their genius lay not only in construction, but in shaping survival itself. In the arid northern deserts, water was life, and the Chimu became its master. They carved channels that stretched for miles, guiding rivers to irrigate crops with mathematical precision, transforming the barren sands into a fertile mosaic of maize, beans, and cotton. Chan Chan, their crowning achievement, was more than a city. It was a statement of engineering and authority. Its walls, built of Adobe bricks, reached heights of 12 meters. Intricately decorated with reliefs depicting waves, fish, and the sacred symbols of Chimu cosmology. Palaces were carefully arranged to separate rulers from commoners, while ceremonial plazas amplified the spiritual and political power of the elite. Even in construction, symbolism was never absent. Canals, storerooms, and palaces were organized not only for efficiency but as expressions of cosmic order, reflecting the Chimu belief that human society and nature must exist in perfect balance. Workshops produced textiles dyed in brilliant colors, ceramics adorned with geometric patterns, and gold ornaments that gleamed like captured sunlight, evidence that the Chimu did not merely build structures, they created a civilization designed to impress gods and men alike. Yet, as remarkable as Chimu engineering was, another civilization was rising in the highlands, one that would rival and eventually eclipse their grandeur. High above the clouds, the Incas transformed stone into legend. Where the Chimu mastered adobe and sand, the Incas conquered mountains, carving walls and cities with precision that defied understanding. Every stone at Machu Picchu, Sacsayhuaman, and Ollantaytambo fits together without mortar, each block shaped to endure earthquakes and centuries. Their architecture was both practical and symbolic. Roads, terraces, and temples aligned with the sun, stars, and sacred mountains, embodying the Inca belief in a cosmic order that tied their empire to the heavens. Their roads, stretching thousands of kilometers, connected valleys, rivers, and distant provinces, allowing armies, messengers, and trade to move with astonishing speed. Bridges, both stone and suspension, spanned gorges and rivers, demonstrating engineering courage that rivaled their architectural beauty. Terraces carved into steep slopes expanded arable land and reduced erosion, a fusion of ecological wisdom and imperial ambition. Even religious structures embodied empire-wide ideology. The Temple of the Sun in Cusco, glimmering with gold, mirrored the celestial rhythms and reinforced the emperor's divine authority. Through monumental architecture, the Incas transformed the Andes into a living map of power, devotion, and human ingenuity. But where one empire built with adobe and the other with stone, a collision of styles and civilizations was inevitable. The Chimu and Inca represented two visions of permanence. Chimu cities, built of sun-dried bricks, shimmered like golden sand in the sun, but were vulnerable to the elements. Inca stonework, eternal and unyielding, conquered mountains and defied earthquakes. Yet when the Inca absorbed the Chimu, they inherited not only artisans and workshops, but also centuries of knowledge about urban planning, irrigation, and resource management. The clash of adobe and stone was not merely aesthetic. It was a testament to two civilizations striving to define what a golden age truly looked like. Engineering was the skeleton of empire, but wealth, trade, and society gave it flesh. Along the northern coast, the Chimu wove a network of commerce and control that fueled their empire. Tribute was the lifeblood of their cities. Farmers delivered crops, fishermen provided fish and shellfish, and artisans produced gold, silver, and turquoise artifacts. This wealth flowed into Chanchan, stored in enormous warehouses that symbolized the emperor's absolute control over resources. The society was rigidly hierarchical. The king, or Sikwik, wielded supreme authority, while nobles administered provinces and enforced the law. Artisans and laborers, bound to their stations, crafted the empire's wealth under strict supervision. Yet this system allowed creativity to flourish within boundaries. The Chimu produced textiles dyed in brilliant colors, gold ornaments of exquisite craftsmanship, and ceramics that told stories of their gods and cosmic beliefs. Trade extended beyond their borders. The Chimu exchanged coastal resources for highland crops, creating a dynamic network that sustained cities and fed armies. In every market, palace, and workshop, the message was clear. Wealth was power, and power was the engine of the Chimu Golden Age. But while the Chimu concentrated wealth, the Incas mastered the art of redistribution, turning economy into empire. The Inca Empire did not merely collect wealth. They redistributed it, creating a system of control that bound millions to the state. Land was organized into collective units, and citizens provided labor, or mita, in exchange for protection and sustenance. Crops harvested on terraced fields were stored in granaries, ensuring survival during droughts or warfare. Artisans and craftsmen worked for the state, producing everything from textiles to ceremonial objects. Roads and storehouses formed the veins of the Inca economy, linking provinces and allowing the government to mobilize labor, military forces, and resources across vast distances. Quipus recorded numbers and transactions, a silent but highly effective accounting system that replaced writing. Through tribute, redistribution, and labor, the Inca transformed economy into political power. Where the Chimu concentrated wealth in palaces, the Inca dispersed it strategically, binding people to the empire while projecting the emperor's authority. Their society was hierarchical yet flexible, blending conquest with diplomacy, tradition with innovation. It was this economic mastery, alongside military skill and engineering, that allowed the Inca to eclipse their northern rivals and define the Andean Golden Age. Yet wealth and engineering were only the outward expressions of a deeper force. The divine, the cosmic order that guided every ruler, artisan, and laborer. The Chimu saw the world as a delicate balance between humans, nature, and the gods. The sea and moon held immense power, and ceremonies often honored these forces. Temples and ceremonial platforms, such as the Huaca del Sol and Huaca de la Luna, were centers of ritual and governance. Here, priests interpreted omens, oversaw offerings, and guided kings in their earthly duties. Sacrifice, often of llamas, sometimes humans, reinforced cosmic balance, symbolizing the necessity of giving to ensure abundance. Artistic motifs on walls and pottery depicted waves, fish, and celestial bodies, connecting daily life with divine forces. Religion was not separate from governance. It was woven into the empire's laws, economy, and architecture, legitimizing the king's power and instilling awe across the population. But the Incas, rising in the highlands, took this vision of cosmic order to a level of imperial ambition that would redefine the Andes. For the Incas, the universe was alive. Every mountain, river, and valley was infused with sacred energy. The Huacas. The sun god Inti reigned supreme, and the emperor was his earthly representative. Temples such as the Coricancha in Cusco gleamed with gold, reflecting sunlight as if the heavens themselves had descended to earth. Rituals were precise, public, and often grandiose. Human and animal sacrifices ensured fertility, success in war, and cosmic harmony. Festivals aligned with solstices and celestial events, reinforcing the connection between empire and universe. Cities were designed to mirror the cosmos. Plazas, temples, and roads aligned with mountains, stars, and rivers, embedding spiritual order into every stone. Religion was inseparable from governance. By claiming divine authority, the emperor ensured obedience, unity, and cohesion across vast, diverse territories. Architecture, labor, and ritual became intertwined in a cosmic blueprint. A civilization not only built on engineering and economy, but on the meticulous orchestration of the heavens themselves. Yet these magnificent structures, rituals, and artifacts are only what survives above ground. What has archaeology revealed about the Chimu, the Inca, and their hidden legacies? Beneath the desert sands of northern Peru, the ruins of Chan Chan whisper stories of a civilization that once ruled the coast with unmatched sophistication. Archaeologists first began serious excavations in the 20th century, peeling back layers of adobe to reveal ceremonial plazas, sprawling palaces, and labyrinthine storerooms. Each excavation uncovers evidence of Chimu ingenuity. Intricate friezes depicting waves, fish, and symbolic motifs, irrigation channels that sustained vast fields in the harsh desert, and burials that speak of social hierarchy and elite privilege. Yet Chan Chan also tells a tale of vulnerability. Adobe, for all its beauty, erodes with time. Floods and earthquakes have reduced walls to dust, leaving the archaeologist to reconstruct empire from fragments. Still, the artifacts tell a story of wealth, artistry, and meticulous planning, a civilization attuned to both the needs of its people and the demands of the desert. And while Chan Chan preserves the Chimu story, other relics reveal the entanglement of northern and highland cultures, especially the Incas, who would soon claim this wealth for themselves. Across the Andes, archaeological evidence shows a blending of Chimu and Inca traditions. Excavations in former Chimu territories reveal artifacts that combine coastal styles with highland influences. Textiles dyed in Chimu patterns, gold ornaments fashioned with Inca techniques, and ceramics reflecting both artistic traditions. These objects are silent witnesses to a story of conquest and assimilation. Even monumental architecture bears traces of cultural overlap. Inca builders adopted Chimu irrigation strategies, urban layouts, and workshop systems, integrating them into their own projects across Cusco and the empire's heartland. The material record suggests more than mere conquest. It suggests adaptation. Knowledge of water management, craftsmanship, and urban organization survived, even if the Chimu rulers themselves did not. Every artifact, every broken pot, and every faded relief is a clue. They hint at a civilization that was not simply destroyed but absorbed, leaving traces of brilliance that would echo through the Inca Golden Age. But absorption is not always peaceful, and for the Chimu, conquest meant the end of kings, palaces, and independence. By the late 15th century, the Inca Empire had turned its gaze northward, toward the Chimu. Under the leadership of Tupac Yupanqui, the Inca launched a campaign that would end centuries of Chimu independence. Chanchan fell after fierce resistance, its walls breached not only by military force but by the psychological power of a relentless empire. The king, or Sequic, was captured, and the elite were either executed or assimilated. The city's treasures, gold, silver, and intricate textiles, were absorbed into the Inca realm, leaving Chanchan a shadow of its former glory. Yet, the conquest was not purely destructive. The Incas recognized the Chimu's mastery of irrigation, urban planning, and artisan skills, and incorporated them into their own imperial systems. In the deserts once ruled by the Chimu, the Inca imposed their administration, redistributed land, and aligned the coast with the empire's cosmic vision. The Chimu Empire had ended, but its knowledge, technology, and culture would endure, hidden within the fabric of the new empire. The Chimu may have fallen, but their genius lived on, transformed, repurposed, and immortalized in Inca hands. The Inca were more than conquerors. They were keen observers and adept assimilators. From the Chimu, they learned to manipulate water, irrigate arid lands, and manage the logistical challenges of cities in desert climates. Chimu artisans were brought to Cusco, where their skills in metallurgy, textiles, and ceramics enriched Inca culture. In architecture, the Inca adapted Chimu urban layouts, integrating palaces, storerooms, and ceremonial spaces into their own city designs. Even economic practices, tribute collection, storage, and redistribution bore the imprint of Chimu expertise. This transfer of knowledge was subtle but powerful. The Inca Golden Age, celebrated for monumental achievements, owed much to the civilization they had conquered. Yet, the Inca also rewrote history. While Chimu innovation persisted in practice, it was often credited to the Incas themselves. The blending of cultures produced an empire that appeared self-made, while the Chimu legacy remained quietly embedded beneath stone and adobe, waiting to be rediscovered. And so emerges the central question: when we speak of the Golden Age of the Andes, whose brilliance are we truly honoring? History often celebrates the conqueror, but the story of the Andes is more complex. The Chimu Empire created a civilization of wealth, innovation, and cultural sophistication. They tamed the desert, built the largest adobe city in the world, and developed systems of irrigation, trade, and administration that rivaled any in the Americas. Their artisans crafted objects of exquisite beauty, and their society thrived for centuries under a carefully maintained hierarchy. The Inca Empire, in turn, expanded with unprecedented speed and precision, building monumental cities, roads, and terraces that transformed the highlands into a unified empire. Their administration and redistribution systems allowed them to govern millions of people, consolidating power across vast distances. They conquered, yes, but they also assimilated, adopting the Chimu's techniques, artisans, and strategies to strengthen their rule. So which civilization truly defines the Golden Age of the Andes? Is it the Chimu, whose innovation laid the foundation of empire and whose creativity shaped everyday life? Or the Inca, whose vision, engineering, and organization created the monumental glory that survives in Machu Picchu and Cusco? Perhaps the answer is not either-or, but a tapestry of achievement. The Golden Age was a continuum, a merging of ingenuity, conquest, and adaptation. The Chimu may have planted the seeds, and the Inca may have nurtured them. But the ultimate bloom of the Andes' Golden Age owes its radiance to both. The ruins, artifacts, and canals whisper this secret. History remembers the conqueror, but archaeology remembers the creator. And as we walk through the sun-drenched walls of Chan Chan or gaze upon the stone terraces of Machu Picchu, we are forced to confront an enduring enigma. Who built Mesoamerica's true Golden Age? In the end, the answer may remain elusive, but the mystery itself is what makes these civilizations immortal. Even after centuries of study, the true story of the Chimu and Inca remains shrouded in mystery. Archaeologists and historians continue to debate the extent of Chimu influence on Inca society. Some argue that the Incas simply inherited a system of knowledge perfected by the Chimu, irrigation, urban planning, and craft workshops, and that the Inca Golden Age would have been impossible without these foundations. Others maintain that the Incas transformed these tools with unparalleled administrative skill, monumental architecture, and spiritual integration, creating something wholly new. Evidence is tantalizing yet incomplete. Some Chimu cities beyond Chan Chan remain unexcavated, hidden under layers of sand and neglect. Artifacts bearing blended artistic styles suggest cultural exchanges, but did they reflect voluntary adoption, forced assimilation, or something in between? Even the Quipus, the Incas' knot-based record-keeping, may contain subtle techniques inspired by northern coastal systems, though no definitive link has yet been established. There are lingering questions about the social and spiritual dynamics as well. Did the Chimu consciously shape the Incas' religious and administrative frameworks? Or were these parallels coincidental evolutions born of necessity and geography? And what of the lost rituals, the ceremonial knowledge, and the daily lives of those whose voices were erased in conquest? Perhaps the greatest mystery is not what we know, but what has been forgotten. The Andes hide secrets beneath deserts, rivers, and mountains, remnants of a golden age that may have been a shared legacy, rather than the triumph of a single civilization. And so, as the stone stands silent and the canals dry, the question remains: whose genius truly shaped the golden age of the Andes? The story of the Chimu and the Inca is not a tale of simple conquest, nor of isolated brilliance. It is a story of two civilizations intertwined, one rising from the northern deserts, the other from the highland mountains. Each contributed its own vision, engineering, and artistry to the tapestry of Andean civilization. The Chimu created the foundation: wealth, innovation, and urban sophistication. The Inca expanded, monumentalized, and unified, crafting a vision of empire that still echoes in stone and gold. Together, they defined an era of ingenuity, ambition, and cosmic order. A golden age whose brilliance transcends the achievements of any single culture. As we walk through the ruins of Chan Chan or gaze upon Machu Picchu, we are reminded that history is rarely simple. The true architects of the Andes' Golden Age may never be fully known. Yet in the stones, the canals, and the artifacts, their legacy endures, whispering a story of human ambition, creativity, and the eternal mystery of civilizations lost and remembered. The Andes hold their secrets well, and perhaps that is exactly how they should be. The Golden Age belongs to those who built it, and to those who still seek to understand it.